Hello, and welcome to what is going to be a UAD video. It's going to be an interesting UAD video because there's another one of the ones where I am still getting used to the software before I start doing the proper recording. So today you're going to see me testing out the beam and the draft scenarios with battle cruisers and seeing what I can do. And I'm going to set it for the battle cruisers, or possibly actually it might be battleships, and for the sailing. Which one I'm going to show you, of roughly 1914, what I could perhaps build in 1914, could have had in service in 1914. And while I'm looking at, I'm going to go through some questions. And the questions I'm going to go through are the ones for the Equitable Washington Treaty aircraft carriers, because I want to respond to them, which is why I have this wonderful cover today. This is why I'm using this cover, because whilst it's not going to be aircraft carriers in terms of what you're seeing in front of you, because I still don't have a game which does that appropriately yet and allows me to muck around with them, I'm going to be talking about aircraft carriers. Now, what I'm also going to say is I've been absolutely gratified and absolutely amazed and encouraged by the number of videos and stills coming through on Discord, which are of what a G3 class carrier would look like. And just thank you for that. Please keep them coming. As said, they will be going into the summary video, which I'm going to Long Patrol, which is going to come out of that series. And yeah, I think it's quite interesting. I think to me, they represent a very big lost opportunity, because I think if we'd gone for something just that bigger than the Courageous and Glorious, and we've managed to get a couple of more of them in service, then the Royal Navy would have been far better placed when it came to its development of aviation. Because really, it didn't get a strike carrier, and it acknowledges it didn't get a strike carrier till Ark Royal. And I think if they'd had a strike carrier, as they were terming them, their terms were strike, fleet/battle, and sort of cruiser. Although that one was more of an interesting one in sort of when it came up. The point is, the more they think these things through, the more opportunities they have to play, the better their understanding of aviation is going to be. The other option, of course, is the admirals. And that's, again, a great loss, because you have the free admirals, but they are, in many ways, further along than the G3s. The G3s, you have pretty much the components there and everything else there, but you can pretty much, nothing's been built. You've basically got the beginnings of the hull, and you've got the engines and all that sort of long-term items placed, but you can start mucking around with everything from beyond that. You know, we can all imagine what they look like roughly 6 sort of months into production, whereas the admirals were far further along, so it required more work to do, and you would have only been able to have 3. But there again, the admirals would have been even bigger and even longer. Sorry, I just had a mental image of HMS Hood with in the lead of a diamond formation with 3 admiral class carriers around her, and then sort of Rodney and not Rodney. No, it wouldn't be Rodney. It'd be Renana and Pulse, actually. I was going to say Rodney and Nelson corners, but actually no. It would be, let's be honest, it would be Renana and Pulse sitting there on the wings. So it'd be sort of a case of HMS Hood, 2 admiral carriers, an admiral carrier here, and the other ends of the other corners of the triangle, Renana and Repulse, and that would have just been so much fear. I shudder to think what the US Navy and the Japanese Navy might have required to allow that one to take place, but if it had... Although, again, considering the British technique for water as armor, goodness knows what they would have how they would have adjusted the numbers to make those ships work as aircraft carriers. Anyway, to the game and the questions. To UAD, let's see what we can do. Now, here's an interesting thing. Here we go. We have the British Empire versus the German Empire, 1914. Let's start them off with 24,000 meters distance. And let's do design ships and see what comes up. What have I got here previously? Ooh, the brand new Dreadnought V is here. Ooh. That's an interesting hull. What can I do with you? Fairly sure there were other Dreadnought hulls going around. We've got Dreadnought 1. Ooh. 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 looks good. Let's be honest, that looks like an interesting design. Characteristics. Warspite. I will take that name. I want slightly faster speed. I'm going to go for 25 knots. I'm going to accept that. Probably I'm going to adjust. Draft. I think I'm going to take that up by about 2%. I don't know. I can't do that. Let's see. Let's put 2% on draft on the bulk design, and I'm going to give it roughly the same on beam. Right then, so we've got a speed displacement of 28 of maximum of 28,730 tons. That doesn't seem right. That seems more appropriate. Ooh, now what shall we do with the main tower? Where should we put the main tower for starters? Main tower is supposed to go very far forward, apparently, according to this. Not sure. I'm keen on having my main tower. It's going to be incredibly far forward. Okay. Let's see. What's the main guns I've got? Secondary tower. Ooh. Funnels. Ooh, I want a tall funnel. I always want a tall funnel. If I move that forward, I can get a tall funnel there. Engine efficiency 56%. Ooh. Okay, first things first. I think I'm going to have to do this by working out where I want my guns. Oh, I can get 14-inch guns. Right, and triple turrets. Oh, well. Then. Oh, now you're talking. Now you are really talking. A triple turret? Oh, thank you. Let's see. What can we do? That's not too high, is it? Medium. Let's see what that does. Ooh. That's a good one. And let's see. Can we get any side guns going on here? Can I just for the... Oh, I can. Oh. Okay, this is possibly going to turn into Armageddon, but we'll leave that to one side. Yeah, we are definitely putting in another barbette. Probably about there, with a main gun on it. And yes, this is definitely not like any dreadnought that was actually ever built, but oh my lord, do I love her already. I mean, look at that pretty... She's going to end up being heavier, isn't she? She is. There is no way this ship is staying this light. Let's see. Oof. I've got 3,000 more tons to put in things. Well, main tower, where are you going to go? I'm going to have to adapt to your placing, aren't I? I'm going to have to really adapt to the main tower's placing. Or it's not going to fit up there. Not there. No, it doesn't like it there. Where's that smoke coming from? It's disturbing things. I think I'm going to have to move you slightly forward. Going to restrict more the forward-firing gun, but that might allow me to just about get... No, it's not liking the positions. That's annoying. Let's put in you then. Let's see what we can do with you. Not keen about losing those guns from my broadside because they were useful. It's always nice to have a bigger broadside than you need. Ball weight offset. 10%. We're going to have to work on this one a bit. Engine efficiency 90. Engine efficiency really down low. I'm fairly certain though, if I can... can I do that? That might be my option. Let's do this. Let's get it started in here. That has to be really far forward. Alright. Ooh. Hello. Well, you fitted in nicely, didn't you? I wonder what we can do with you. I'll take you forward a bit. It's going to make someone happy with their weight line, but it's going to work. I'm sure it will. And can I get this? Oh, yeah. Oh, yes, this is going to be good. This is going to be Alex having a lot of fun good. Now, the next question is... I do that, and I find this. Yes, I know some of you are going to go, you're going very American, but bear with me, and it does sort of fit. We'll see how this works out. Getting rid of the side turrets, I know, it's really makes me feel bad. But on the good news, it does allow me to have 2 of these. Which I like having 2 of these. Now, slightly over on the weight, but I think I can do things about this. And the full weight offset is excessive. Hmm. But engine efficiency is now at 100%. She has got a broadside of 15 14-inch guns and is probably a nightmare for anything. And actually, at this point, I can probably start taking down the beam a bit. Because everything's to the center line, so let's see if I can't get it up to fast. I want to ideally reduce roll as much as I can. Let's see. Oof. That makes her a big shipper. Let's see how big she can go. Okay, if this thing's coming at you, you've got problems. You have got real problems. I mean, this girl is gorgeous, but she's wide. She really is. And we haven't even got on to the sort of crew or anything like that. I have literally just been playing around with those lovely settings. And she's Royal Navy, so I'm going to give a veteran. So I'm going to have a standard, and I have a feeling I'm going to end up having to lose a turret. I want oil powered because I can. I want geared turbines because I can. I want force. Well, that tech. Then, if that's the best I can get, I want that. I want the best steering. I don't want Harvey armor. It's freaking heavy. I want barbettes. What's the best anti-torpedo I can get? Oh, double bottom. Definitely. Reinforced bulkheads. Anti-flood. Citadel. Ooh, armored citadel, definitely. Ooh, rangefinders. I'm so losing a turret over this. I know what's coming. I know what I'm going to have to end up sacrificing. Yes, this game. Yes, for this game. I know it's not realistic, but it's this game. It's the rules. Ooh, standardized shells. What do I want? Ooh, let's see. What's she at? She's at 41,000 tons. Ooh. Still got to lose a couple of thousand tons. Hmm. Not even allow me to shift and place it there. No. That's really annoying because honestly, I should be able to shift and place it there because that would make my life a lot easier and allow me to design my ship as I wish. You can go, it's not historical, but it isn't that anti-historical. Okay, let's, for the sake of the game, do that. So that now has a good all-rounder. We are at... This is a pretty darn decent ship. Ship's still overweight. Well, I'm going to take down the bulkheads just a touch too many. And I'm going to take down the range just a touch. And that does give me a little bit extra weight to play with. So, time for secondary guns, he says. What kind of secondary guns are we going to fit, Alex? Ooh. Well, we could go casemate. Or 6-inch, but 6-inch would get in the way of the main battery firing. That one's not really in the way of anyone. I could probably stick a couple here without getting in the way of anyone. And another one here without getting in the way of anyone. I'm going to need to have something else for the funnel because, well, it's going to need something. Let's go have a look at the armor and see what it's like. Do I even want to dare check? Oh, 13-inch belt, main belt. That's nice. Let's get that down to 13. Conning tower. You must be kidding me. I'm not that generous to a conning tower ever in my life. We'll take the rest. Looks okay. Turret armor. Again, that's going down to 13. And I still have a bit over. Oh, I can fit some torpedo launchers if I want to. Don't want to fit some torpedo launchers. I do want torpedo launchers. And enhance. Increase torpedo ammunition? Yes. It's the biggest torpedo I can fit it with. 19-inch will have to do. And do I want some casemate guns? Obviously not, because they're obviously far heavier than they look. That's annoying. Mm-hmm. 4-inch ones could be better. And that would keep, and be fairly hysterical, and would keep away any sort of annoying little destroyers and things like that. Just a tad. That'll do. Just a tad. That won't do. I'll do. Let's see how she goes. And let's consider our German counterparts. What do they look like? What's the German vessel going to look like? This is the point at which we decide whether I am going to be hopelessly British or I'm going to be fair. I have to say, if I'm designing for the Germans, I am usually going to put them on seasoned, because that's roughly equivalent to what they were in real life. And I should really be nice, but I'm going to put them semi-oil, because that's more close to what they would get. And that's turbines. Be nice. I'm being generous here. And yeah, let's see. Main tower. What's it going to look like? Oh, well, see, they get a main tower which allows them to do that. And in the nicest way, the British had super firing forward before the Germans did. So I don't. They text me. They really do. And we've got sort of forward firing already, superimposed already, so that's going to have to do that. Oh, central line cradle. Oof, that looks good. Engine efficiency. We'll see. We'll see what centerline guns. Oh, they've got 14 inches as well. Okay. Well, I'm going to be fair then. We're going to decide which one's the more appropriate. And honestly, I could probably put in another one at the back here. I probably shall do. Can I? I can if I do that with it. Ooh. There you go. There's the 15, 14-inch guns, but that's well overweight. But I can muck around with this one. I do have to muck around with this one. I'm going to have... Oh, well, this Carvey armor, of course, is overweight. And it's going to be the same in terms of barbettes and torpedoes and double and reinforced bulkheads and anti-flood system and let's go for an armored citadel and standard reloading enhanced and the turrets upgraded as well, and we have stereoscopic because we're German. Acoustics, I'm being generous. Advanced, being generous. And now we're well over the weight limit, but I'm not really bothered because I'm already adjusting the weight limits. So that's up to the heaviest it could be. Take those out. Put in that again. Because apparently I have to. This, I'm starting to think, is actually a better ship than the Germans actually built themselves, but we'll leave that to one side. What can I say? I'm generous to a fault. And after this, I am going back to the British ship and redesigning it, but we'll leave that to one side. And really, you need another funnel as well. Ooh. Does that come in at roughly the same height? Close enough. Close enough. But it's now 38,990 tons. Okay, what can I do to improve your weight limit, your weight differentiation? Well, that's going down to 12. Not much difference. What else can I do with you? Ooh, you've got to lose 2,000 tons. That does get about 1,000 tons off, so we're down to standard bulkheads. We'll leave it at this speed because that's still being generous and helpful. What else can we do? We need to get rid of 1,000 tons. Am I having to delete one of my lovely turrets again? I like the idea of having a 15, 14-inch gun ship. Oh, it was so cute. And I'm fairly certain if I delete one of these, you get the 4-weight offset will go up in dramatically. Yeah, I delete one, it doesn't really... It's still 100 tons off, and the 4-weight has gone up dramatically. Okay, I've got an idea, but it's gonna be radical and weird. But, bear with me. Bear with me. I have to delete both those turrets to get everything off. That creates the weirdest battleship known to mankind. Hang on, let's do it this way. So, apparently allowed a maximum of 6 turrets, twin turrets. Cute. We've got 5 turrets. I can probably up the weight, up the speed a little bit now, or the armor, depending on my mood. Oh, torpedoes and secondary guns. Let's go with torpedoes and secondary guns before I do go too mad. Bam, bam. Let's see, torpedo size 19-inch as well, and let's put in secondaries. I think casemate guns probably sensible, and we're going to go for 4-inch before I start upping lots of things. Honestly, I should probably be going for 5-inch, but I just want to see what I can get away with. Wow, the 4-weight is really rocketing up. I now need to sort out the 4-weight. So you're going down to 12 because I'm sensible, and I want to buy myself some tonnage. And now let's start off the aft belt. 5.3. Ooh. Aft deck. 4.8. A little bit too much, and ship is now overweight, and 4-weight offset is still not down low enough. But half weight is now secured. Okay, so this is going to be the German contender. I haven't done as much playing around with beam and draft on this ship, but I'm still pretty pleased with it as a German ship. It's recognizably German Navy, if more sort of American-style turret layout. And I think that's frankly gorgeous, and does give them a 10-gun broadside. But only 21 knots, roughly. Whereas mine has a 12-gun broadside. It has a 12-gun broadside, and that's always interesting. But yeah, that's Dreadnought 4. It's supposed to be Dreadnought 5. Oh, that explains some of the issues we had. Let's start this over again. Beam. Draft. Maximum 25 knots. Let's give it standard quarters. Oil fired. I can't believe I didn't notice that earlier. I'm so annoyed with myself now. It's beyond belief. I don't know. All basically the same as what the other vessel has. So, now. Let's see what we can build. Main tower. Okay, you go there. Not sure I'm keen on the hovering. Oh, There's a really big funnel complex. Tempting. Tempting indeed. Let's start off by doing it this way. Right, I'm going to go for the medium. And let's see, centerline guns, 14-inch trebles. Now it works! Woohoo! Engine efficiency 100%, 4-weight. Massive! Obscene 4-weight. Right. Barbette. Medium, superimpose barbette. I put that there. I go back to the main guns, and I go centerline, 14-inch. Ooh. Now, again, this gets into the whole all forward or all nothing or nothing argument, and I would always point out that, honestly, if you're in a scenario where you can build bigger, you build bigger. You go with the efficient design of the all forward or the all forward armament if you don't have that as an option. Not because you want to. It's really not a case of wanting to do these things. It's never a case of wanting to do these things. Engine efficiency is still 100% with only one funnel. I will accept that. Right then, let's see. Let's do that. Let's do that because it's helpful. And yep. I'm trying to keep things distinctly British in its design. Oh, we're up the armor belt a bit. Right then, we've got a 13-inch armor belt. We've got decent sized forebelt. And aft. Oh, I need to fit the torpedoes on it. Again, the torpedoes are very limited. You might have noticed I've gone for increased reloads, and that's simply because you don't have the other spacing for it. So I've put in the reloads. But now, when it comes to secondary guns, I can, if I want to, do this. And that's going to be a little bit overweight. And then, ooh, I wonder if I could. I'm just seeing if I've got the space for them. Not actually going to fit them, but I'd have to take off these and these. But let's see. Have I got the space to fit them? Ooh. That would give a new dimension to all forward firing, but we'll leave that to one side. And we'll go with our 6-inch, and we'll go with twin turrets, because I feel... or I could go with the 4-inch. Let's go with the traditional, the Royal Navy's love at this point, love affair with the 4-inch trebles. I think the 4-inch trebles really do fit in this positioning, and they give me a lot of comfort. Now, yeah. Oh, Barbette, I haven't done them yet. That's going to take me over it, isn't it? Always. 850 tons over. Where am I going to get 850 tons from? Where am I going to get 850 tons from? Now I need 240 tons. 4-weight offset is that, which is annoying. 4-weight offset is 13%. Some guns have poor sectors of fire. Which guns have poor sectors of fire? None of these guns have poor sectors of fire. What I want to do, none of them have poor sectors of fire. Which guns are you talking about? Mythical guns, which don't exist? There are some mythical guns which don't exist, I'm fairly certain, somewhere on this design, but none of them are here. Yeah, this is, I think the weakness of this ship is going to be its forebelt, because it's aft. I'm having to weight up to balance off the 4-weight offset because of the funnel arrangement. Wonder if I can move that a little bit further aft. Let's see, shall we? We'll wait now at 7%. Can I move this back? Tall? No. Is there another one which does it way less? No. Not enough less. That, however, does allow me to move some things back. That does. 4-weight offset now down to 3.5%, and that's a lot better, thank you very much. I will take that, plus the weight's gone down, something chronic, so I can actually start being remotely sensible with things. Remotely sensible for me. Not necessarily for the game, but for me, this is definitely me balancing this ship out and me building. And it's going to be interesting to see how it performs versus its German counterpart, which has got 10 guns, so this one's 12. It's going to be interesting to see what happens exactly. Let's see. Aft deck up. We're trying to reduce that 4-weight offset down to a point at which I can start balancing up the offset again. Thank you. I can now start balancing up my forebelt a bit. I'd prefer that to be roughly 4.8, if not more. If I can get that up to 6, I'm happy. And yeah, that up to 4.8. Will it get up there? Four-weight offset 1.7%. Are we going to achieve the perfect, or at least some form of symmetry? Dang it! Well, that'll do. Yes, I know. I'm taking down the conning tower, but this is me. We all know that any chance I get, I'm reducing the conning tower weight. Because I don't see much point in it. That's good. Right then. Shall we go play and see what happens? We shall. And now I shall start answering questions, because I'll hand this over to the computer and let the computer take on the lead of the fighting. So try and make it fair as you can when you've given one ship 12 guns, the other one 10. But they're fairly fair. I know which one I'd probably want to be in myself. And she does have an appropriate name. Although if Warspite had 12 15-inch guns, Lord help anyone who ever got in her way. She's bad enough with 8 15-inch guns. Alright then, she's looking good. Well, she is. The enemy is off in that direction somewhere. I can see you. Let's see, have my modifications made any help to your actual operation at all, or have I given you too much beam and too much, well, too much everything? Let's see. Let's see what happens. Now, starting off with the comments, and I have to admit there are a lot of very cool comments, and to stop not interfering in the game, I am making sure I'm looking at them from my phone. So if I misread anything, it's probably because it's sort of that's how I'm seeing it on my phone. And there were a lot of comments on this particular video on the Equitable Washington Treaty for carriers, and that was really, really cool. It was something which I was really quite proud of. Because I like, to be honest, I know it's more sensible if you rate your videos by how many views or anything like that. I always rate them by how many comments they generate. The more comments, the better I think I've done my job. Driver 417618, liked, comment, and subscribed. Thank you. So then we start off with Knight 681 and Freeze comments, and he actually got us some good responses from Dakenred and from Blue Marlin 81, so they're kind of interesting to read through. Knight 681, as you explained why the US had issues with converting Lexington and Saratoga, frankly, lack of experience in carrier conversion alone doesn't seem like the only factor in why they can't take off 3,000 tons to make the ship's treaty compliant. Dakenred pointed out the Lexingtons were bad designs from the start. The armor they had for a battlecruiser was laughable. That's quite true. Putting the island on 8-inch turrets made them unbalanced, which was only partially fixed by using its fuel oil for ballast. Ooh, we've got fires going on. Ooh, there are torpedoes inbound as well. Let's go and have a look at Wiesberg. Wiesberg is doing well. I know. But both are on fire. This is the trouble. When you have a 1v1 hit thing, it does tend to turn into a grudge match. And how in the name of all things holy did you allow yourself to get hit by a torpedo Warspite? Dakenred, frankly, they should. Knight CK31's response to Dakenred. Frankly, they should have used 5-inch guns instead of 8-inch guns as are overkill. Actually, the 8-inch guns, as I said, made sense when you consider Lexington and Saratoga were supposed to be these reconnaissance carriers, basically taking under all the battle cruisers with the fast fleet, a scouting fleet in front of the fleet. So the idea was they could be out on their own and could come across enemy cruisers. Computer, if you let Warspite sink, I'm going to be so annoyed with you. Blue Marlin, 81, this response. At the time, it wasn't known that carriers wouldn't be engaged in surface actions, even if they were just a scouting force. And since the US didn't have a lot of cruisers to escort them, and aircraft weren't yet a threat to ships, it was felt that they needed to be able to defend themselves. But in hindsight, yes, it was overkill. And then to Dakenred, Blue Marlin 81 responded, If completed as battlecruisers, they would almost certainly have received thicker armor in the 1930s. I expect they could have gotten a 9 to 10 inch belt and still remained 32 knot ships, down from 35. So basically HMS Renown, but with 8 1650s. No, they weren't ideal carriers, but due to being conversions, but they're probably the best ones of the 1920s and early 1930s, only being definitively eclipsed by Ark Royal and later, late 1930s, Japanese carriers. The things you speak of were inconveniences, to be sure, but they don't take away from the fact that Lexingtons were extremely fast and could operate a huge air group. They could operate a huge air group, and I do often admit this, but the thing is, it's how long could they operate them for? And again, it comes back to the fact when you're talking about air group operations, if you're operating, how many of those aircraft you're carrying are you operating, and how many are stored in the hangar roof as your aircraft to be flown if you need to? That's the reality you're sort of talking about, and that's what you also have to think through. What are they there for? What is happening to them? Ooh, those torpedoes are causing masses of damage. It's the torpedo damage which is getting my Warspite, isn't it? But, ooh, there goes Wiesbergen. I might have to do some I might do some modification designs for you guys and take off the torpedoes and just see what happens. Could be worthwhile doing, because you're both looking in pretty bad condition, and I think it's mostly the torpedoes. Ouch! Way to hurt each other. I would also add that Lexington and Saratoga, I think they have the potential to be best carriers in their era, but I don't think they are in many ways the best carriers in their era. And I say this, not thinking courageous, glorious, or furious any better, but in looking at what's operating, the best carrier in the 1920s and 30s in terms of what it's operating, what it's achieving, what it's consistently producing in terms of operation is actually HMS Eagle. Which is really weird, because she's not the biggest, she's not the fastest, and she's certainly not the most capable in terms of air group of any of the carriers. But in terms of operability, in terms of supporting forces, in terms of developing carrier doctrine, naval aviation in the 1920s especially, Eagle is, for me, it. I think I might need to run this again to have any time to actually answer all the comments. Wow, there are a lot of comments. I do like that. Tech Team 26. If it would have been much more interesting if the Washington Treaty lumped aircraft carriers and big gunships, battleships, and battlecruisers as cavalry ships in terms of tonnage. This conceivably could have made for a very interesting mix, where the RN would have had the opportunity to turn the Splendid Cats into carriers, not converted a Chilean battleship into Eagle also, retained Tiger and R-class battleships as gunnery training ships, and scrapped all other 13.5-inch armed ships. USN would have had the opportunity to eliminate all its remaining 12-inch armed battleships, along with one or two at New York class older 14-inch battleships, and converted one or more additional Lexington class battleship cruisers into fleet aircraft carriers, whilst having more tonnage available, so that Wasp and possibly Ranger would have been built as superior Yorktown carriers. Now, I make the point in response that I'm trying to keep as close to history as possible, but also B, there's the other reality. In the 1920s, if you give someone, an admiral, the choice between putting tonnage into an aircraft carrier or a battleship, they're going to pick a battleship, because aircraft are not there yet. So actually, if you combine the tonnage, you could well see aircraft carriers disappear in terms of numbers. There's no reason they'd use the Splendid Cats or anything, because, again, they've been worn through by war service. It might be they might be given off to the Australians or New Zealanders, but the Royal Navy itself is going to go with the brand new ship it can convert into an aircraft carrier. Plus, the thing is, the idea that speed is important for an aircraft carrier is not something which is really known immediately. It should be known immediately. Ooh. 10 guns are doing well. 10 guns on all these torpedoes are doing really, really well. Versus 12 guns and a lot less torpedoes. She's basically still afloat. So, yeah, it's an interesting idea. I might actually wargame that at some point and maybe talk it through as an option, do a special on that. Paul Beswick, nothing in the Equitable Treaty for submarines. Not yet, it's coming. But submarines really don't get a mention until you get into the London treaties. 1931, again. I remember reading somewhere that the US wanted the UK to have to scrap carriers so they could build new ones. Yeah, I can't help but think the USA is trying to basically dictate to the UK what is allowed, except people don't consider the UK or Japan could have said to the US, get stuffed and walked out. With the cruisers, the UK and France need a large fleet, makes a lot of sense given the large empires they have at the time. Does America, Japan, and France and Italy really need aircraft carriers? The UK does. Blue Marlin. Seems like communists with a bit of agenda that completely ignores the fact the US was entitled to look out for its own interests. That's true, that's the whole point of painting this. Everyone tries to dictate terms in arms control treaties, and this was no different. And actually, the US was really the only country that could financially afford to tell everyone to get stuff it wanted to, at least in the long run. No, I'm fairly sure Britain could as well, but leave that to one side. Japan would have to gone bankrupt trying to keep up with the US or Britain in arms race. Its economy just wasn't developed enough at the time, and it was too dependent on foreign resources. Britain could technically still afford to build more ships and could outbuild the US in a very short term, but once US infrastructure and shipbuilding experience inevitably caught up in a few years, it would have surpassed Britain's naval power. This would have, of course, depended upon the US Congress keep actually investing money. That's always the problem when these things come through, and let's be honest, US Congress and consistently investing money in things is something which is an issue throughout their history. This might have been a quicker process than the raw numbers would indicate, as many of the British battleships were worn-out 12-inch gun design ships. Yeah. And the new designs for both countries would have obsolete a lot of their existing fleets. This would have cut the effective numerical differential. But even though the US was in a much better financial position, the Harding administration and Congress didn't really want to spend all that money unless they absolutely had to. And there is an argument as why would they have absolutely had to versus Britain. This is the problem. They could really warming up and defense case against Britain this time would have been problematic. Would have been an issue. Especially as the US does become very isolationist in the 1920s, as you put out. Remembering the US was highly isolationist after 1920, other than the Monroe Doctrine, France was in worse financial shape than Britain, and it had to devote most of its military and budget to its army. Italy just wanted parity with France. Good lord. Britain obviously needed a large fleet and a lot of cruisers to police the empire. The US needed a large fleet because it had to defend two huge coastlines, plus Alaska and Hawaii, and had its own knotted empire in the Pacific. It also had to enforce the Monroe Doctrine. It conceded that it didn't need as many cruisers as Britain, though, as its possessions were to spread out. France needed even fewer cruisers, as it had short coastlines and its empire was mostly very close by in Africa. There's a very large chunk in Indochina, only Indochina and a few small Pacific or Caribbean islands. And there's the islands in the Indian Ocean, and the islands in the Atlantic, and the islands in the Caribbean. Well, you've mentioned the Caribbean ones, but France has a lot of little dots around the world. If you ever look at the map of France, there's a lot of little dots around the world. Kind of like Britain. Japan really didn't need a bigger fleet than even France, and certainly nowhere near as big as Britain and the US, as it had few colonial possessions at the time and were relatively isolated from the other mega powers. Have you told Japan this? They're an island nation. They think their defense is the sea. The USSR was in no shape to threaten it navally either. Why would the US need Britain to scrap carriers so it could build new ones? That doesn't make a lot of sense. And why do you think other navies wouldn't need carriers if the RN had them? Even back then, they were a huge scouting and spotting advantage. If Britain had them, then other navies needed them or having to risk being left behind. Very true. The US was also mainly concerned about the Anglo-Japanese naval alliance, with Germany crushed and no one else financially able to maintain a huge fleet for the foreseeable future. The only potential enemy which Britain and Japan might potentially need an alliance against was the US. The US and UK were still in only a tentative friendship at the time. I would argue it was a little bit more than tentative. But again, Britain was quite happy to play games with Japan. And Japan was regarded as a likely future enemy of ambitious to take US Pacific territories. Basically, in the nicest way, America considers Japan this the moment Japan kicks them out and says, we're not going to be your we're not going to be your new colony in the Far East. So it's sort of a case of a self-fulfilling prophecy. America manages to create its own enemy. US and Britain had no way of knowing that Japan would be so offended that it would hyper-militarize and come after both of their empires. Actually, to be honest, there were people in Britain warning just that. They thought it would create trouble. Let's go to redesign ships. Let's see, what's the problem here? I could take out the torpedoes, but there's obviously another issue going on. Roll, engine efficiency, all those are good. That's got a good field of fire. That's less so. Hull weight offset 0.3%. So thinking more about what Blue Marlin 81 has said, and he is making some interesting points. Please don't get me wrong, this is me going into what I would call lecturer / occasionally a bit of a devil's advocate mode. Because he is looking at the straight facts and presuming even if you make changes, things continue as they are. But even if you consider what the U.S. Congress and U.S. Congress does and even wants to, they don't want to spend money. Isolationist is one thing, but honestly, I would call them fiscally hawkish. They don't want to spend any money, and the British know this. The British often, for the British, the treaty system and the major advantage of the treaty system is it buys them political cover so they don't have to spend money, so they can spend money on other things they want to spend and spend money on paying down the debt, which they want to do. If they don't have the treaty system, then the British politicians have to, and I mean this in the nicest way, have to spend money on defence. So therefore, the British politicians want the treaty system because it gets them out of that bind. But they are still in a better position to do it. And the way you talk about infrastructure, yes, infrastructure can be built up, it can be developed. But if you consider, even in the late 1930s, when war seems imminent with both China and Europe, with both Japan and Europe and all the other things, the US is very slow to invest in infrastructure. And pretty much most of the infrastructure that we really associate with the war, the big balloon in infrastructure, takes place after the war in Europe has begun. So, yeah, I'm sort of those things that I can see your argument, and I would probably make something similar in terms of if I was writing a paper as one of the perspectives. But I'm not sure I agree with the way it's the full structure and oeuvre of it. I think it's missing something. And I think the reality it's missing is you're reacting to Knight 6831's, I wouldn't say jingoistic, but very, very passionate about HMS Hood, etc. So it tends to be very pro-British building ships. And going sort of almost the other way to balance it. And I can see why. And frankly, the US does need aircraft carriers. Anyone who has large expansions of oceans that they have to protect trade on needs aircraft carriers. That's the basic thing. Aircraft carriers are basically trade protection tools. And they know this at this point. What am I going to do with you? How am I going to make you better? How am I going to make you better? I move you back a bit. Can. What does that do to you? Still got a fairly decent one. And that doesn't mean I can move you back a bit. Can. And with the aft weight 0.4%. I'm wondering if I should change that funnel layout. I'm wondering if I should get a better funnel layout. I'm wondering if I can get a better funnel layout. That's an interesting one. It is. It's an interesting discussion, and it's an interesting point to think about, really. It's something which I'm going to have to explore a bit more as I go in, I think. I'm going to have to think this thing through a bit. But let's see what this does. Let's see what it does. And let's get back to the questions. So once again, we're going to let the computer do the running. Now, Blue Marlin. Notifications response to Blue Marlin. Why would the US need Britain to scrap carriers so it could build new ones? That doesn't make a lot of sense. Because from something I heard or read somewhere, that was apparently what the Americans tried. And to an extent, there were various things. The Americans were basically saying that you had a total tonnage limitation of carriers, and these aircraft carriers would count as experimental, and you would, in the nicest way, you couldn't go over certain tonnage limitations. But there again, that's for everyone, the treaty system. And why do you think other navies wouldn't need carriers if the RN had them? Even back then, they were a huge scouting and spotting advantage. And trade protection. Trade protection. Remember, trade protection. Right then, Warspite. We're going to watch you closely and find out where the problems come from. If Britain... Well, geographically, really, France and Italy have no need for them as their regional powers of the Mediterranean. Don't tell the French that. Which a carrier really would not be needed. I would argue, considering the performance of aircraft carriers in the Mediterranean World War II, the carriers are quite needed in the Mediterranean. America and Japan lack vast empires. Again, the Americans, Philippines, Japan, various ambitions in China and the rest of the world. If Britain had them, then other navies need them, or having to risk being left behind. Just like British cruisers. If they have it, so must me. Not necessarily. Blue Marlin 81. Fair enough for Italy, as it operated almost exclusively in the Mediterranean time, but if France needed to defend its colonies, an aircraft carrier would come in handy. Although maybe not the one they ended up with building. No, the Burn is nowhere near. No, we have covered the Burn, and I've also mentioned the Fock. The Burn is no. Against another nation with carriers, they'd be at a disadvantage without them, and against a nation without carriers, it's still good to have the advantage that carriers provide. US didn't have as many global responsibilities as Britain, but it did have them. As I said, it had the largest coastline of any major naval power, plus Alaska and Hawaii. It also had the Philippines, Guam, Samoa, and Wake. And it basically policed all of Central and South America. Again, I know America likes to claim it polices all of Central and South America, but it really doesn't. The British are just as involved, if not more so, down there at times. And so, honestly, I'm sorry, but no. The Americans claim to be more involved in South America than they actually are. Wow, that fire's spreading. Oof. Yeah, I think what I needed to do was up the compartment numbers by increasing the number of those fires. Look at them ripping through. It also had the Philippines, Guam, Samoa, and Wake. Whilst it wasn't technically an empire, it was a lot of responsibilities. And the same applies to the US and to France. If other countries have carriers, you have to have them or you're at a disadvantage. If you think about it, if Britain didn't need them to police the empire, their empire either, it just built them to gain an advantage. It's natural for everyone else to want to keep up. Britain did need them because if you look at the infrastructure of supporting aircraft, this is one of the things I often get in trouble, but explain this one. The most difficult thing to move in World War II is what? A heavy bomber squadron. That's the most difficult and logistically challenging thing to move around. Imagine what moving a wing of aircraft the size an aircraft carrier carries is like to move around. What? Are you going full Warspite and turning round in front of the enemy? Please stop doing that. Please stop using that. There are lots of myths around the Washington Treaty, but I have to admit that's one of the ones I've heard a bit about. But honestly, the carrier fight that goes on and the fight over carriers is more a case of no one knows what they're going to be used for or what they are for. Knight Executive 1. And Doc, what is stopping a Navy from keeping the older ships around past the length you set, considering the average service life of a warship is 25 years maximum, minimum, and 30 years max? They still have time left that makes them viable for other duties. A 20-year limit for battleships and battlecruisers and 18 for aircraft carriers makes sense, however, it only works if a viable replacement can be made. If not, then you keep what you have with modernizations. Looking at what are any of the powers going to do to stop them declaring war? Well, the response is cost and infrastructure. Plus, a new ship and old ship might be the same tonnage, but if you're improving hull shaping, engine design, and of course, don't need to worry about such things as you can build new. However, I do admit a nation might keep them in service, but if one does, then the others will start to as well. And if Japan did, well, the USN and RN are both building more, so their reserves would build a lot more quickly. And they have the infrastructure to support it. For the USN and RN, it's cost. For IJN, it's the fact that even a year or two's extra reserve, the major powers would soon outpace them, and for them, the ratio would be worse. Their security is linked to the 7 to 10 ratio. Losing that would undermine their own security. That is basically the trouble. That's what keeps people in line with the treaty. As long as they feel that supporting the treaty supports their own security, they'll keep to the treaty. The moment they feel the treaty undermines their security, they will ignore the treaty. Alright then. And now we get into debates on names for the G3 carriers. We've got Mick Brown's, St. George, St. Andrew, St. David, and St. Patrick. Nice. We have Tarkley Telcontur, Fairfax, Cromwell, Monk, and Lambert. I like that one. Mainly because Lambert, I can pretend, is also named after my professor. Jack Ray, Archincourt, Naseby, Blenheim, and Waterloo. I'm fairly... The small problem there is that they're all land battles, but I can understand. They're nice battles. Very nice installment. Thank you from Morton. Kurt Over, Zeus, Apollo, Athena, Artemis, Lightning, Warfare, Archery, and Archery. I love it. Thank you. Right then. So, from Martin Peacock. So, another great video. Well done, sir. Thank you, Martin. I always like your comments. Usually they're going to make me think and want to work out another 3 videos. For Japan, they could, in theory, go for 30 to 31,000 ton ships. Officially, these would be 28,875 ton ships that have been subjected to some creative accounting. That gets Japan to 8 ships that are still very good. Kind of hard to guess, though. If the Japanese are converting Amagis, then they are probably a bit big. Honestly, don't know of America. As for Britain, I think the G3 route is chosen, but they go with 33,000 ton ships. The 4 G3s, Argus, Eagle, and Hermes, take up just little enough tonnage to get 5 ships of 27,500 tons. That is still 12 aircraft carriers total, and while there will be a little bit of fiddling on which carrier to take out of service, when it's possible to keep building carriers at 27,500 tons, until you run into only having 11 ships for a short time before the first G3 needs replacing. To get for each displacement. Blue Marlin. In this case, I think the US would have been the best served to stick with the Lexington hull. It still would have given the US carriers a longer flight deck than the Amagi or G3 conversions, and they still would have been 35-knot ships. The additional displacement on the Amagi and G3 conversions probably wouldn't have been that useful, although they might have been able to support more upgrades in the 1930s. If there were no treaty, Lexington carriers might have been even better, though, as they would have been ground-up carriers just based on battlecruiser hull, instead of battlecruisers converted halfway through construction. This is the point about the G3s. In the nicest way, if you consider the level of construction, they're even earlier in their construction than the Lexingtons. Imagine what you can do for that. Hello. Ooh. Yeah. This is going to be painful to watch, isn't it? You should win. You have more guns still firing. You should win. Alfie Rowe, for G3s, I would call them Gibraltar class. I would name them Gibraltar, Malta, Singapore, and Hong Kong. Cool. Dan Haas, I've been loving your videos, but is there a chance you could turn the volume up on your mic? I've noticed they tend to be quite a bit quieter than most other YouTube videos. I'm not sure why. The mic is supposed to be loud, the volume in front of me is supposed to be loud. People used to complain about me being loud all the time, and now it's not. Oh, I do not know. And then from Marcus Franconium. Well, here is a question. With current technological development, could we see in future or near future dedicated drone carriers or any other interesting new ships? I do know the new Belgian-Dutch Admiralty mine hunting motherships and concept ship, but what would you think will be next step in naval development? We've discussed this in bilge pumps, and yes, I do think there's going to be drone carriers. I think there's going to be drone man carriers soon. And Dan Freeman, G3 carriers, Trafalgar, Albion, Temeraire, and Warrior. Ooh, those are nice names. Those are really nice names. And Carl van Gasberg, you've come with on Greek mythology. Ryan, Centaur, Ulysses, and Apollo. Oh, that's nice. And now I've got all sorts of questions from Andrew Cox, which are very big ones, but I think I'm going to go with the Glenn McCleary one, and that is going to be the last of the questions. So indeed. So, Glenn's question. Thinking about need and purpose, the UK, being recon and radar detection, the UK should have been able to push for one carrier operation in the North Sea, Atlantic, Med, and Indian Oceans. Given the usual count by the Royal Navy, this requires 2 ships for each theatre, so that's 8. Which would imply 4 for each American coast, and the Japanese would wish for parity or local supremacy, so 5 or 6 carriers. Then we could encourage France and Italy to have 4 each to wave baguettes and pasta at each other, and given they lack navalized aircraft. Finally, I would impose a new rule. No more than 8 guns of greater than 6-inch size. To tempt Japan and USA to try to create hybrid carriers and wasting their carrier group with the temptation of 4 heavy turrets. Evil, but I like it. I liked all these questions on the carriers. And as said, the thing I judge my videos by is how many comments they generate, is the comment response. And I love the fact that the Equitable carriers generated 60 comments. And I hope you've enjoyed this one. I've shown you the design functions, what you can do to an extent with UAD. I've shown you some of the details in terms of what I've been working through in terms of comment response, and a couple of videos. A couple of games where it came out even. And also, I think that also makes the case for why you have the torpedoes in the earlier dreadnoughts. Pre-radar, but even pre some of the developments in range finding that happened in World War I, you're still very much in the sort of the targeting range of torpedoes. Once you get beyond World War I, that's when you start to get the things turning up where it's no longer viable. Anyway, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and yeah, thank you. Thank you for all the comments. Keep them coming in. As said, there are going to be a lot more coming on the Equitable Treaty series. I'm going to do through Washington. That's got at least a couple more videos coming up. As said, they're going to come out when I'm in Canada. And then the London treaties, I'm going to treat as one. So rather than doing different two separate series on the London treaties, I'm going to combine them together because honestly, in many ways, they are one-to-one in terms of their development. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and take care. Thank you. And once again, thanks to Brian Jeffries for these designs. They're really, really cool. Oh, and question I'm going to finish off with, because I want to do a question of UAD one, and I'm doing this now for videos. I'd like you to say, and if you're thinking about it, I'd like you to comment below with, in terms of the carriers, what kind of carrier force you think different navies needed. What do you think the USN needed in the 1920s? What do you think the IGN needed in the 1920s? What do you think they really needed in terms of aircraft carriers? If you could go back in time with all your knowledge, what kind of carrier force would you build that would be capable of working in the 1920s? Because I know what I'd go back and do. Seriously, those admirals would not get lost and the G3s would not get lost. All 7 would get converted into carriers. I would, hook or by crook, they would be converted before the treaty was agreed, so they'd be considered experimental, and they would be in service. But that's me. What would you do?